Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. What could be worse than Karen next door and her cute little angels? We'll see in the first story. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. EM defends her kids trespassing. For context, I live in a pretty nice neighborhood in Jacksonville, Florida. Gated, upper and middle class, etc. Basically, it's a Karen breeding ground. Should have thought of this before I bought my house. Oops. I'm 24, so very young for most homeowners. For those wondering, I afford it due to a combination of a well-paying job and inheritance from my family. I don't have much family left alive, just a few distant cousins and great aunts and uncles, but no immediate family. This is important for later. I've found a new family with my friends. I'm close to all of them, and since most of them still live at home, my place has become the place everyone comes to hang out at if they need to get away. That or they just really love my dog. Anyhow, we fast forward to this Monday. I come home to two kids, 11 and 14, playing with the Xbox I've set up on my back porch. Naturally, I ask them, what the hell are they doing here, and they run off. Nothing's missing, no damage done, so I decide not to pursue it further. Boy, was I about to be proven wrong. 6 p.m. rolls around and I hear a knock on my door. And by knock, I mean Thor's trying to get in. I'm met with the gold standard and entitled mother. EM. Why did you harass my kids today? Are you some kind of pervert? Me, after about 4 seconds of stunned silence. I found them on my back porch playing with my Xbox, so I asked them to leave. Why is that a problem? Gary, the guy I bought the house from, used to let my kids come over all the time. You have a nice pool, and the kids love it. I don't give a damn. Keep your brats off my property. So I proceeded to slam the door in her face. She then started to complain to the HOA for various issues with me and my property. So this looks like it'll be fun. And our second story. A car she could afford. This isn't my story. A family friend who's a driver's ed teacher told it to me. It concerned a former student of his. This takes place in Europe, so U.S. rules may not apply. Said student came from a modest background, went to law school, and ended up at a good firm, started dating a colleague there, and eventually got engaged to him. This is where our story starts. The guy's family was old money rich, and they told his bride-to-be that they would buy her a car of her choice as a wedding gift. So she went car shopping. What we need to know at this point is that she didn't look like a big-shot lawyer outside of the office. Her free-time style, as it was described to me, was something like a goth-punk mix. So she went to a car dealership in her hometown. Nothing fancy. She wasn't there for a Ferrari. She just wanted a nice new car and figured she'd spend the money where she grew up. So she walked around the dealership looking at a couple of new Mercedes when a car salesman walked up to her, looked her up and down, and said condescendingly, "Go look at cars you can afford, girl." She left, and she was pretty upset. When she told her future in-laws, they were sympathetic, but they also pointed out that they'd like to get her a better car than the dealership in question had for sale. They suggested she pick up a super fancy car. Author's note, I'm not interested in cars, so I can't remember what it was. It was rare in Europe, and the driver's ed teacher's eyes shone brightly when he talked about that one time she let him test drive. You're going to have to take my word, as I took his, that this car was something else. The super fancy car had to be imported from the U.S., so it took a while until the lawyer got her wedding gift. When she finally had it, she drove it to her hometown dealership. This time, she didn't look like a goth punk. This time, she dressed up. She even wore long gloves. She walked into the dealership and asked to speak to the boss. When she was led into his office, she put her vehicle registration certificate on his desk in front of him without saying a word. The boss went a bit pale. He thought she wanted to sell him the car, which he couldn't afford to buy from her. "No," she said, "I don't want to sell you my car. I came here because I bought it following your employee's recommendation. I love this car and just wanted to thank him." Now the boss was confused, so she added, "You see, he told me to look at cars I could afford, so I did, and I got this one." The irate boss asked her to point out the employee in question and started to tear into him. He wasn't an employee there for much longer. Second rule of retail, it's not your money, so don't treat the customers like it is. And our next story. Make her work sick? How about nobody works at all? Background. I've worked as a temp in construction for almost 3 years. I've had offers of direct employment by some companies I've worked with, but honestly, I love being a temp. Anytime I get bored, I can change jobs within reason, so I've tried a bit of everything. That, and I like to collect a piece of high-vis from every company I enjoyed working for. Now, recently I've been doing nights, which I don't mind at all, but it's been a bit stormy, and another one of the temps had come down with the flu. They showed up to work dying. I asked what they were doing there when they were so obviously sick, and they proceeded to tell me that after contacting the boss to say they were ill, the boss apparently called nonstop and basically harassed them into going. I absolutely loathe people like that. He's a recent addition to our company and constantly contacts the team, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, to check that we're going in, etc., which is annoying to say the least when you're trying to sleep during the day, but to berate an employee into working when they feel so terrible is not only wrong, but illegal, especially in these bizarre times. Add the fact that this was the coldest, windiest, and wettest night we'd had so far, and I was unimpressed. Side note, I've been having a lot of contact with lawyers over the last couple of years, helping my partner out, and I'm an incredibly fast reader. I hadn't thought much about the job we were doing before this, but the next day I went online and downloaded every manual that had anything to do with the company we were currently contracted into and the job we were doing. It was over 1,000 pages of mostly acronyms and legal jargon, but anything that didn't make sense or that had a loophole I took note of and contacted the traffic authorities and current contracted company for clarification. After just a couple of hours, I contacted my office to see where Boss and Big Boss were, and luckily they were both in, unheard of, and were happy to wait 30 minutes for me to come down. Big Boss knows me pretty well by now and knows I'll try anything once just for experience. I've worked through broken bones and all sorts of personal tragedy just for the sake of the job and people I'm working with. But if someone rubs me the wrong way, I will be the most spiteful, petty, evil little thorn you've ever met. Newish Boss wasn't ready for it. I started by saying I didn't like how coworker was treated, and during a pandemic I thought that was unreasonable. Coworker is barely 18 and definitely felt bullied into coming in when they shouldn't have, putting the rest of us in danger of getting sick. Boss defended his crappy actions, and I let him ramble until he was done, then gave him 28 instances where the job we were doing was in violation of our country's employment and/or traffic laws, and a further 14 violations of the current company's regulations. Big Boss just laughed, knowing there was no way I was working with that many violations, and Newish Boss wasn't getting his all my workers went to work with no problems this month bonus. After all this, it took almost 2 weeks to sort out and fix all legal issues, by which time all the other temps had other work to be doing, and absolutely none of them wanted to go back to that particular site, and our contracts all state we absolutely do not have to undertake any job offered to us if we don't want to. I took a week off just for craps and gigs, and Newish Boss is still learning who he can screw and who he can't. I was having a beer with one of the owners a few days ago, and he said newbie groans loud enough to be heard next door when I call, which is a little sad, because if he hadn't tried to cut corners, he wouldn't have gotten screwed so badly. Well, everyone learns on the job. This week, his lesson just happened to be, don't mess with my team. Neighbors wanted to call a professional to mark their property line. My parents agreed. This was a long time ago, but I remember it clearly. We moved into a community with tight space in between our house and our neighbors, and we didn't like them being able to see into our kitchen. We put up a bunch of plants costing thousands, but my parents thought it would be worth it. A week later, my parents awoke to the plants completely chopped down. My father was furious and marched down to our neighbor's house. He told my father the plants were on his property line, therefore he had the total right to take them down. He warned that if anything were to go on his property again, he would report us to the authorities immediately. Later that day, my father called the company that put in the plants, and with the warranty, we could have them replanted next week for no charge. We made sure there was no way it was on our neighbor's property. However, a few days later, we caught him chopping them down at 2 a.m. We called the police upon obstruction of property, and after a chat with my neighbor, he decided to call a professional and mark his property line. My father agreed. A few days later, I got home to find orange tape in my neighbor's yard. Apparently, his fence was 11 feet over our property line. We watched as he took down his fence, completely furious. Within the next month, we were enjoying our new space and privacy in our backyard. and my neighbor ended up losing a quarter of his backyard. My neighbor ended up having to pay almost $10,000 for destruction of our property, and we got to plant our plants again. And our last story. I don't care if it was a mistake, I'll get you fired. Not my story, overheard it, so IDK if it's exaggerated, but my dad doesn't really exaggerate, so anyways, this happened to my dad while he was working. He works for Maggie's Paratransit. It's like a taxi company for sick people. So he has a console on the driver dashboard where the addresses of the people he's supposed to pick up are sent from the HQ. Anyways, he's picking up people when he reaches a particular address. Now keep in mind, he's going to the addresses on his console. So after picking up all the people and redepositing them somewhere else, he gets sent a new address. He goes to it, and outside stood an angry woman. When she gets inside, she says, "Why did you skip my address? I have places to go, and you made me late." "I'm sorry, ma'am, I just received your address, so I didn't know." "What do you mean you just got it? Don't play games with me." "It's true, I never got your address." "Stop lying to me. Just admit you were lazy and skipped my house because of that." My dad's now taken aback. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I never got your address. Now please sit down so I can finish my job." "Stop being lazy for once and do your job properly. These people can wait. I have places to go." "Ma'am, if you want to go to your destination, then sit down." "I don't care if it was a mistake. I'll get you fired." "Ma'am, if you want to complain, go to my boss and complain. Otherwise, sit down, be quiet, and stop complaining because I can deny you this bus ride." The lady then looks around and realizes she was defeated. Fine. My dad rolled out, and more crap found a way to hit the fan by utilizing quantum properties and developing a teleporter. The lady decided that the AC was making the bus too cold, and this man is trying to freeze us to death. But everyone ignored her. When she finally reached her destination, she got off without a word. Then about 5 minutes later, my dad got a call from his boss. "Dad." "Hello?" "Boss." "Yes, OP's dad, we received a complaint about tardiness and attempted assault from one of your passengers. If she was, insert lady's name because IDK it, she was lying. I never got her address until after all the others and complained about it." "Oh, she's the one at, insert address here, correct?" "Yes." "Okay, sorry for the disturbance. Just bring the bus in after you're done and you can clock out." "Thanks and bye." "Bye." He clocked out and left for home. Hey guys, thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.